California of the past.
I
I
am
am California
California
of the
of the
past.
past.
I
I am
am
California
California
of
California
of
the
the
of the
past.
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 My name is Celia Organista. I was born and raised in Texas. I came to California in 1965. In 1965, I was actually working in a grocery store as a cashier. And life took a turn, and I lost my job. And a friend of mine said they're taking people to work in California. It had always been my dream to come to California. I was 20 years old. And so I thought that would be a great idea. It was field work, and I had never done field work before. I had worked in grocery stores most of my life until then. And so the next day, I was chaperoned by my friend's aunt, and we took a bus from Laredo, Texas, to Watsonville, California. In that year was the first year after the Bracero program ended, and so what was going on was the growers in the area were continuing to look for farm workers because the Bracero program had ended. The strawberries were becoming the crop in the valley, and so they were recruiting in the border towns for workers to come to California. And so it turned out that I was one of those workers. There were 14 of us that came in the bus that day. It was June the 14th when we left Laredo, Texas. And none of the women that came with me spoke any English at all. I was the only one that was bilingual. And this, again, was 1965, where when you went places, it wasn't necessarily a place that you'd find somebody who speak both languages. And so I became the unofficial translator through the whole 3 days that we traveled. I had dreams about what California was like. I thought it was sunny all the time and warm, and much nicer than Texas, which was always boiling. And so I was prepared for California, and I brought sun hats and tank tops and shorts and things like that to pick strawberries, which was not very smart. So we arrived at night at Moss Landing. I remember passing through Moss Landing and seeing for the first time ever a plant like that, and arriving at a labor camp. When I had been recruited, I really thought they were going to put us up in a hotel, but it turned out that it was a labor camp. And when we woke up in the morning, it was very much like it is in California, in Watsonville, in June. It was fogged in and cold, and I was not at all prepared for it. So in the morning when we woke up, they told us that we need, for those of us who didn't bring the appropriate attire for picking strawberries, they would bring us into town to go shopping. And I had brought very little money with me. I think I had something like $10. In those days, I was making $1.15 as a cashier in Laredo, and was coming for bigger money because they were saying that in California you could pick strawberries for $1.25 plus 25 cents per crate. I thought a crate was really a basket. I didn't know that crates were actually held something like 16 baskets. So I had thought I was going to make a lot of money, so I decided to just bring very little money with me and left the rest of my money with my parents. And so I really only had like $10, but they gave us 5 to go shopping. And so we went to a secondhand store, which was Catholic Charities secondhand store, and I bought a whole new wardrobe for $5. And the next morning, they packed us all in a truck and took us out to the fields. And we went to work at a ranch the name of the ranch was Porter Berry Farms. And I had never seen a strawberry plant. I thought strawberries grew on trees. So when I got to the fields and I saw that the strawberries were actually on the ground and there were these huge rows, I was very surprised. It was a very difficult day, the first day. I think around 3 o'clock in the afternoon I crawled out of the row. I could not stand up anymore. It was so painful. And Came back the next day, and I remember that the first night, not only was I very, very sore, in particular my buns, because that's what tends to hurt a lot when you bend over for that long period of time. After a while, it's your back that starts to hurt. Your body does adjust, though. I have to say that after about a week or so, your body adjusts to the changes, and you become able to bend over and pick the strawberries and notice very little. I'm sure as you get older, it gets worse. I was very young at that point. Anyway, on about the third day of picking strawberries and being very bad at it, I noticed a young man who was actually the crew foreman, and he would jump the rows and check our crates. And whenever he would come and check our crates, I was never really looking at the fellow. I was basically concentrating on picking the strawberries because I'm a perfectionist, and so I wanted the strawberries to all be perfect. And I was actually pretty good at picking them fast, but I was really bad at packing them. And so it took me 3 times as long to pack strawberries as it did to pick the strawberries, which made me a very bad picker. The young man came around and would check our crates, and he would check my crate, and I really didn't pay any attention to him at first because I was in so much pain. I couldn't notice anything, and I was so miserable. I had never had such an experience that I didn't pay attention. But I think on the third day, when I started to feel better and was looking around me, I noticed that this young man was actually very good looking, and he wore an LA cap. And I thought he was a college student that was working for the summer, which goes to show how much I know. It was actually the LA Dodgers. And the young man turned out to be my husband. 3 months later, he and I were married. We have now been married for almost 45 years. He still wears an LA cap. We have 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and we live in the ranch where I pick strawberries. And my husband still goes out every morning at 6 o'clock to do the same thing he was doing back in 1965 when we met.